the stand. Now he runs. He produces a magic trick. He pulls out another one. This is incredible. This is ridiculous. This is 15 out of 10 on the incredible meter. What a player. What an entertainer. Give him the medal. Give him the Dally M medal.
Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast. We're back once again Thursday, which means we've got the Thursday night footy game today, followed by the Friday games tomorrow. So we're here to do the Thursday and Friday preview podcast right now, so we won't waste any more time with it. We'll get straight into it, starting with the Storm and the Broncos. This one taking place Thursday, 4th of April, 8 p.m. Storm currently sitting in 5th on the ladder. Broncos all the way down in 12th, so very different circumstances for these clubs, but two of the premier powerhouses of our competition, both of these teams, of course, finishing in the top 4 in 2023. So it's going to be a really good game. Definitely a good way to kick off our round 5 week of sorts, so we won't waste any time. We'll get straight into this preview. We'll go through a few of the ins and outs. Obviously, if you want to see the majority of these, they are up on my Instagram, so I'll give that the plug. At Chip and Chase Podcast, go give me a follow over there. A lot more content coming, and at the moment, the consistent stuff is including the main team list Tuesday news. So every week we run through that, and you can see that stuff in a few scrolls. So that's really cool. So a lot of this you might have already seen, but we'll just go through the main ones as well for this one. So for the Storm, of course, they're coming off the bye. So technically you could say the entire team is an in and out, but the main ones, of course, are Cameron Munster has been named for his first game of the 2024 season. He has been dealing with a groin issue. There were fears that he may have missed the entire season with this one, so it's really good to see him back. That would have been awful to see one of our premier players miss the entire season, but he's back in for the Storm at 5/8. Jerome Hughes is back after his 1 week suspension when he pushed the referee, so good to see him partnering Cameron in the halves. And the other big in is Christian Welch, their former captain. He's back onto the bench for the Storm. So the outs for them mean Chris Lewis, Grant Anderson, and Kane Bradley. They all make way. Well, for the Storm, they've got a pretty unchanged team from last week. They've just got the one change, which is Xavier Willison. Xavier Willison is out with, I believe it's a HIA or some sort of issue. It's expected to just keep him out for 1 week. I think it's a HIA that he picked up in training, actually, is what happened. But that means Benjamin Takura, the 205-centimetre giant, comes in to make his NRL debut for the Broncos off the bench in jersey 15. So really exciting to see how Ben Takura goes in this one. He becomes the tallest player in NRL history, topping the likes of Dane Tilson, Matt Parsons, David Clemmer, etc., even Dom Young at the moment. So really cool to see that. I want to see how this behemoth goes. It's a shame he's not up against Nelson Asofa Solomona for the Storm. Obviously, he's still not in the Storm side. They're giving him more reps, getting him some more match fitness over down in New South Wales Cup, or I believe Queensland Cup for the Storm, isn't it? So it would have been good to see those two go up against it, two behemoths on the field, but I'm just really excited to see how he goes in this one anyway. So in terms of my tips for this game, I noticed that in the betting agencies, or at least through Sportsbet, who I bet through, the Broncos are actually quite considerable outsiders in this one. Storm are $1.70 favourites, I believe. I think it's like $1.70 to like $2.70. I can understand that. It is the Storm at home in Amy Park, and coming off the bye with the additions of their big gun players. Like, I understand they're favourites, but this is still the Broncos side that just demolished the Cowboys, who are the only undefeated team in the NRL last week. I know the Broncos are still without Payne Haas and still without Reece Walsh, but they seemingly haven't missed them. Like, Tristan Saylor was fantastic last week. So I've tipped the Broncos as a bit of an upset, which means we'll get into the bets a bit later. But yeah, you can sort of assume that one of my bets will be the Broncos to win this game. Not confident, of course. I understand that the Storm should be favourites. I just wanted to go for a bit of an upset in this one because I do believe in this Broncos team to get it done. In terms of how I see it playing out, well, it's going to be very different. This Storm pack has been criticised for years on end for their forward pack, but they've seemingly just made inroads this year. You look at their team and you're like, where's that punch coming from? Kamikamitha and Josh King as your front rowers are really good front rowers, but they're not really break the line, offload. They just do their thing. So where's it coming from? I don't know, but they're getting it done. They're matching it against the best. So it's sort of just the Craig Bellamy recipe, isn't it? He can always match it with the best. The big thing for them is their second rowers, Sean Bloor and Eliesa Katoa. That is a scary little forward pack, a scary second row combination. They're actual guns, and I'm sure they can pick up that workload. Trent Liero was fantastic in their round 3 game as well before the bye. Made his way into my team of the week, which also there's a post of that on the Instagram. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. Another little plug there. But for the Storm to win this, I think they're just going to have to play through their halves. Even without Cameron Munster so far this season, Jerome Hughes has been putting on a show, putting on a clinic, just playing really adept straight into the line and hitting his second rowers on some fantastic balls. I expect him to continue doing that. And now with Cameron Munster, I think it's going to be really hard for the Broncos to really know how to defend against both of these halves, because they can run some incredible shapes and really good off-the-cuff footy. They're just eyes-up players, both of these halves. It's one of the enigmas in the NRL. Normally you need a very controlling 7 and an off-the-cuff 6. The Storm, they sort of have 2 bloody fullbacks playing in their halves, and they kill it. So always really hard to defend. I know if I was a coach, I'm not sure how I'd be talking to my players, say, these are the structures they're going to pull. This is what we need to do in defence, because you never really know with these players, and I think that's what makes the Storm so fantastic. Of course, they're still partnered with Ryan Papenhuyzen and Harry Grant in the spine. I think it's undoubtedly still the best spine in rugby league, in the NRL. So with a healthy team, this is the probably the best this Storm team is going to look. Maybe with the addition of Nass on the bench at some point, and maybe Joe Chan coming back in, or Jack Howarth back from injury. But it's a very close to full strength Storm side, so it's going to be very, very hard to get the Chockies over them. But onto the Broncos, I just think that they can get it done. We saw how they beat the Cowboys last week. I think it's going to be a similar vein of footy. They can spread the ball from anywhere. They're not afraid to play out of their own end. And I think their forward pack can more than match the Storm. It's, of course, not as powerful as it should be without Payne Haas, but we've seen Patrick Carrigan step up in his absence and be incredible for the Broncos. Oh, they're also missing Piakura, of course. That's another big out for them. Jaden Hunt, he looked really good for them last week, though. Jordan Ricky has been fantastic this season with his effort areas. So I just think that they can get this one done. I think the scariest part maybe is their bench. Takura probably not going to play too many big minutes in his debut. Corey Oates only managed about 14 minutes last week in a second row sort of role, despite the fact he's primarily a winger. Kobe Hetherington maybe is going to be the beneficiary of a few more minutes, but I can't imagine their bench getting too many minutes and staying out there for long, because it is a bit light on, a bit smaller of a bench besides, Takura. So I expect big minutes from Jensen, Baker, and Carrigan, especially in this one. And if that's the case, if they can stay out there and they can stay fit, I think they can just play through them, especially with Paddy Carrigan. So that's how I think the Broncos are going to get this one done. As I said, we know that they can play from their own end, and they've got attacking structures all across their back line. Tristan Saylor especially, we're sitting here saying Reece Walsh, massive, massive loss. Tristan Saylor was exceptional last week, and I expect him to do the same again in this one. So I think the Broncos can get this one done. In terms of my matchups for this game, you can look at the halves, of course. It'd be really good to say Cameron Munster in his first game back against Ezra Mam, who I think has been a little bit underformed this year, though I did think he had a really good game last week. That is a matchup I really like. Ezra Mam, he's sort of growing into the season more and more and more, and Cameron Munster he's Cameron Munster. He's the best 5'8" in our game. He's one of the best players in our game, coming back from injury, coming back to get results for this football team. I really like that as a matchup. I don't mind the front row duel as well. Sort of 4 players that, not really solidified in their roles, not really, maybe outside of these teams, they're not getting a bait. Corey Jensen wasn't really getting a bait in the Cowboys. Josh King, not so much in the Knights. But for what these players are for their respective teams, they're really important. So I really like the duels of the front rowers in this one. Really think that's a good area for them. But yeah, definitely my number one matchup has got to be the 5'8", Cameron Munster, Ezra Mam, 2 5'8", 2 Queensland 5'8" at that. Ezra Mam is probably the incumbent to replace Munster once he retires in that jersey from representative footy. So really good to see how these two go up against it. In terms of the bets for this game, I should have had this one up and running. Now you're going to have to bear with me while I fumble around on my phone. All right, so not the most expansive multi, but it's something a little different. Obviously, I've gone Broncos head-to-head, that one being a bit of an outsider bet, so there's good value there. I've got Dean Mariner as an anytime try scorer. And I've got the game going under 39.5 total match points, and the odds of that come to $11.25. So if you're putting $1 on that and all three leggers get up, you win $11.25 back to the dollar. Once again, this is all done through Sportsbet. I'm not affiliated with Sportsbet in any way. They're just the agency I choose to bet through. If you want to follow along with any of these bets, do it through the Sportsbet app, because a lot of these markets may not be available in other agencies, and even if they are, the odds may be completely different. And once again, just remember to gamble responsibly. So that is the bet for this one. Yeah, the Broncos, I'm just going to tip them for the upset, but we'll move on to the first Friday game, the 6 p.m. game between the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs and the Sydney Roosters at Accor Stadium. So it is a Bulldogs home game. Bulldogs currently 14th on the ladder. Roosters 7th, sitting pretty in 7th in that top 8. Really interesting sort of game. The Bulldogs have sort of been growing into their season well. I'm still not convinced. I still think there's a few changes that need to be made, and there's a few changes that have been forced this week with injuries and suspensions and whatnot. So we won't waste too much time, and we'll sort of get into those ones. So of course, the first of those being Josh Adokar. He misses this game with a HIA, so he's at least missing the 1 week with the 11-day stand-down policy. He could miss more. It was a pretty nasty head knock in that one. So he is out of this one, replaced by Blake Wilson. So really good replacement there. You're not losing too much. Which is just a testament to how good Blake Wilson has been for the Bulldogs, not the Broncos, because Josh Adokar is a fantastic player. But yeah, Blake Wilson, he comes in on the wing. In their forward pack, Sam Hughes has been promoted to start at front row. Liam Knight has actually been demoted to the bench. So for super coaches, maybe there's something there, but who knows? Liam Knight's been playing like 19 minutes off, starting and then never coming back on. It could be the same for Sam Hughes. Josh Curran comes in at second row, partnering Viliami Kickout in the second row with, who was the second? Jacob Preston. Jacob Preston is now out with a facial fracture. He's missing a few weeks expected there, so Curran takes that second row spot. And the new people on the bench are Harrison Edwards for his first game of the season, and Kitione Kotonga for his first game in the NRL. He's making his debut there. The other person who dropped out of this side is Curtis Morin with a suspension. So really good to see Kotonga get his debut in this one. Really excited to see how he goes. But once again, a pretty light on forward pack for the Bulldogs, gets even lighter. So it's going to be a tough ask against this massive Roosters forward pack. For the Roosters, they've got no outs whatsoever. They've got the exact same 17 that got the Chockies last time. The only difference in this is that Angus Crichton has actually been promoted to start at second row, and Satilis Tupanua has been demoted to the bench. Oh, and sorry, the other one is that Lindsay Collins is back at starting prop. Terrell May is on the bench, and Egan Butcher is out. So sorry about that. Missed that one, but there we go. So those are the ins and outs for the Bulldogs and Roosters. In terms of how I see it playing out, well, I've got the Roosters winning this one. They are my tip for this game, and I've got them winning pretty substantially. What they've been throwing at the competition this year, I've been really impressed with. Bulldogs, look, I do like how they're growing into this system. I do like how they're sort of sticking with the players that they know and trusting the process. As much as I don't like their selections, I like that they've got an idea, they've got an identity that they're trying to build towards, and they're sticking to that, and I respect that. But I think, what was already a light-on forward pack going against this Roosters forward pack, it's going to be tough, especially, with the outs that have just come. I think Josh Curran is going to have a massive game, but what he brings at second row, you're now going to miss off the bench. He was playing a sort of front row, a middle rotation role, and he was really excelling there. I think he's going to be even better in the second row, but you're now missing that punch off the bench in the middle. So I think Sam Hughes and Liam Knight especially are going to have massive games. We know what Max King brings, but I think Sam Hughes, now that he's promoted to start, I think he's going to have to kill this game, and I really hope he does, not just for my Supercoach team, but mainly because of my Supercoach team. But yeah, unfortunately for the Bulldogs, just don't see them in any way getting it over the over the Chooks here. I've actually got the Chooks 13 plus in my multi, which we'll get to. I just think across the park, there's not really a matchup in any position that I'm like, yeah, they're better. Like even their best players, Stephen Crichton, he's matching up against Joseph Manu. He's technically matching up against Suwali, who, yeah, you can say Crichton's better than Suwali, which he is, but Suwali, he's not bad in any stretch of the imagination. So it's not like it's a massive difference. Anywhere else across the park, I just don't see a position that they actually win in. Like, yeah, I do see them losing this game, unfortunately, for the Doggies. But as I said, be patient. You know, your wins will come. You will build into the season nicely. But we will get into the multi for this one. So, as I hinted to earlier, I've got the Sydney Roosters winning this one 13 plus. I've got Sam Walker as an anytime try scorer, and I've got the match going over 38.5 total match points. The odds of that come to $9.25. So if you put $1 on that, you're winning $9.25 back to the dollar if all three legs get up. There are a few anytime try scorer options in this one. Tedesco, he's not at bad odds. I think he was around $2.50 when I made this multi. I didn't put him in, obviously. I want Brandon Smith again. I just have a gut feel that he's going to score another one. Obviously, I got on him last week. And yeah, reaped the rewards from that. Was big on him last week. Just got a gut feel he goes back to back. Another one I really like is Angus Crichton back in the starting side. Thought he was really, really good. I gave him a rap in my review podcast last week. In his 26 minutes off the bench, I thought he was fantastic. And I called for him to be starting in this one. And the Roosters, obviously they listen to the podcast because they've listened and they've put him into that starting role. Think he's going to be exceptional in. He could cross for a chocky in this one. For the Bulldogs, it's a bit harder. You know, I don't know how many points they can muster up in this one, but if you had to bet, I don't mind Josh Curran at really good value for the Doggies. Beyond that, Stephen Crichton maybe. There's not too much to note there. But that one will wrap us up for the first Friday game, the second game of this preview. So we'll get into the last game of the Friday preview, which of course is the Newcastle Knights taking on the St George Illawarra Dragons, 8 p.m. McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle. So the Knights, they're currently sitting in 15th. They've only got the one win this season. Dragons in 13th, so not too far above them, but I don't know. I've been high on the Dragons and not so high on the Dragons, and last week I'm like, you know what, I'm high on them again. I don't know, they're an enigma of a footy side, but I sort of like what they're throwing out there. The Knights weren't bad either. They went up against some really tough opposition in the Warriors, so hard for them to get that win. Who was electric was Kalen Ponga in that one, so I'm excited to see how he goes in a weaker side, respectfully to the Dragons, but they are just a weaker side than the Warriors. Can they get the chockies? Absolutely, they certainly can. Am I going to tip them? Well, we'll get into that. We'll start with the ins and outs for the Knights. The big one, of course, is they have dropped Tyson Gamble. He's dropped down to reserve grade. Jackson Hastings has been brought back into the side. He's actually starting at halfback, though, and Jack Cogger moves into the 5/8 role. For their backline, nothing really different there. Leo Thompson has returned for the Knights. He's starting at front row in number 10, which means Daniel Saifiti heads back to the bench. The other change that they have made is Jaden Brayley is now starting at hooker. They've decided he's got enough reps into the legs. He's got enough experience that he gets to start in this one, which I think is great. I thought he was really, really good in his limited role last week. I thought he was fantastic. Had a few nerves in their first game, but last week I thought he was really, really good. And honestly, unfortunately to Phoenix Crossland, who was the shining light of last year, I thought he's been really poor so far this year. So I think it's going to be a really good change. I think it just simplifies their attack. Phoenix doesn't have to go out there and try and do absolutely everything to prove that he deserves that role, which is what I think he was doing. I think he was, in the first few weeks, he was just trying to do too much to be like, look, even when Jaden does come back, I should be the hooker, which in a way I respect that. But I think, it was overplaying his hand. There was a lot of errors, a lot of missed tackles. I think this is better suited for them. Jaden Brayley, he can do it all at hooker. And Phoenix, he can come off, have his role simplified, and he can be brought out there to do whatever he wants to do, sort of thing. I think it's a really good change for the Knights and something that they needed. While for the Dragons, are there any changes whatsoever? I'm going to scroll through here. Jack DeBellin is actually starting at prop in this one. Came off the bench last week. So why is that? who started last week? Blake Laurie. He is now off the bench for the Dragons, actually. So that's the only change that they have sort of made. Tom Eisenhuth is starting at lock. He came off the bench last week, so we'll have to see if that happens again this one. But yeah, not too much. They've named a pretty stock standard 17, one of their strongest lineups. And good on them. They're playing some pretty decent footy. In terms of how I see this one playing out, well, it's a very interesting one. I think the Knights halves are going to make a big difference on this one. I've been calling for this one, for this halves combo for a while. Maybe they're too similar, but honestly, I think you just need your best players out there. I think they can get it done. And even if they can't, you've got Will Price waiting in the wings that you can bring on. Not in this game, but bring into this side in the future. I think Will Price is going to be a star when he gets his shot in the NRL. He's going to be the perfect 5/8, and whether they choose Cogger or Hastings to be the halfback in the future, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, they've got Cogger and Hastings, and I expect a good game out of them. I think, honestly, they might complement each other pretty well because they've got facets of the game that they both can do, which means you don't really know what you're going to expect. Tyson Gamble, you expect, he's going to be the predominant runner. With these two, well, what are they going to do? They can both kick really well. They can both pass really well. Their pass selection, their timings, they're really, really good. They're both halfbacks. And in a way, I can see this working. I think communication is going to be the key. Who's going to be overcalling who's going to be the dominant one? We'll have to wait and see. That could be the detriment. But I think their qualities as individual footballers can go really well for this Knights side. So I'm interested to see how they can lead their boys around the park. I mean, if we look at the other side, Kyle Flanagan and Ben Hunt, both of those players are bloody halfbacks as well. Flanagan has settled in really, really well to his new role at 5/8. Can the same be said for Cogger? We'll have to wait and see. I think Cogger's a really good player, and he can definitely settle in. I think Cogger and Flanagan are similar in a big way, that they came through similar-ish times as two of the absolute gun halves coming through, and they've sort of fizzled out. They didn't hit the heights that we thought they would. Now they're back into these different sides, both sides sort of struggling to start this year, and let's see how they hit their roles in this one. So I think the Knights can get it done. However, I am tipping the Dragons as another little upset. Actually, I'm not even sure if they are the upset. I think they are, but not by much. It's a pretty close game. I'm not confident in this one at all. I think because it's at McDonald Jones Stadium, you know what? I'm scratch that. I'm changing my tip to the Knights, but I've already got the bet on the Dragons, so we'll get to the bet later. But now that I realise it's at McDonald Jones, Friday night footy, Kalen Ponga was exceptional against the Warriors. Let's see what he can do against the bloody Dragons. Yeah, I see Kalen Ponga putting on a masterclass in this one. I really do, and I think he can win it for the Knights. Once again, though, I think their forward pack has been absolutely awful this year. Like, none of them have been good. Their second rowers have been good, in my opinion, and Adam Elliott had a really good game a few weeks ago, but their middle forwards, their front rowers, they're not standing up. They're really not. So if they're going to have another poor game, I can see the Dragons forward pack rolling through them, and we know what they can do off the back of it. Take a look at last week. Take a look at round one. When their forward pack is rolling, Ben Hunt is playing eyes up footy, and you've got Tyrell Sloan with his pace lurking. They've got, honestly, the more I look at this Dragons team, they've got attacking weapons across the park. So if the Knights forward pack isn't going to stand up, the Dragons can get it done, and they can get it done convincingly, which was my theory heading into this. This is why I was going to tip them. But just KP at home, the Knights still struggling. They need to stand up. I think just that alone is going to let me tip the Knights. In terms of my bet, though, as I said, I have actually gone the Dragons, so bit different. I'm tipping the Knights. I'm betting on the Dragons, so no matter what I win or no matter what I lose. So you can call me a bit of a coward. I will take that on the chin. But I've got the Dragons as the head-to-head victors in my multi. I've got Kalen Ponga as an anytime try scorer, and I've got the match going under 38.5 total match points. Really good odds on this one. Comes to $20 odds. So you put $1 on that and all three legs win. You're getting $20 back to the dollar. So really happy with that multi. Watch it fail because I've tipped the Dragons and now I'm going for the Knights. Who knows? Watch it be a draw. That'll be the icing on the cake. Because if this game actually comes out and it's a draw, because then I'll stuff everything up. I've just realised I've missed my matchups for the last two games. So let's quickly go back for the Bulldogs Roosters game. The matchup I'm most excited to see. It could genuinely be Stephen Crichton and Joseph Suaalii. I think they'll match up. No, Crichton's left-hand side, Manu's right-hand side, isn't it? I don't know. Whoever Crichton matches up against in the centres, I'm really keen to see. I actually really hope it's Joseph Manu. You know, Manu has essentially been the best centre in the NRL for a long, long, long time. And then Crichton last year put his name to the stardom and really solidified himself as the best centre in our game. I want to see them match up. I thought Joey Manu last week, he was trying absolutely everything to get their team to win, and I want to see those two go at it. Even if Crichton's up against Suaalii, I'm keen on that too. Suaalii has had some really good centre duels so far this season. It's been really enjoyable to watch. You know, he's the young buck. Whether or not he's leaving at the end of the year, I don't think that necessarily matters. He's here to win now, and I really am excited to see who Stephen Crichton matches up against, because that centre duel is my favourite matchup for this one. But we'll go back to the Knights and the Dragons game. My matchup for this one, who have we got? Well, look, I did mention Jack Cogger and Kyle Flanagan, and in a way, that could be my matchup. It's not the most exciting matchup, but I think these two players, how they fit into their roles really dictates whether or not their side wins the game. And I like their background. As I said, everything I mentioned before, where they've come from to where they are now, I think it's an exciting little matchup there. You know, maybe not the highlight reel players, but however they play, I think it's going to have a big dictation on who wins this game for their clubs. So I like that as a matchup. Beyond that, not much in the forward pack. I do really like the second rower duels. You know, we know how big I am on Jaden Sewer. I've talked about Luciano Leilua extensively since he's been at the Dragons. I think he's been terrific as a signing for them. And they're up against Tyson Frizzell, who's been amazing, and Kai Pearce-Paul, who's been pretty darn good as well, and he's settling into his role. He's going to have that breakout game. We know it's going to happen. So I like the second row duels here. I like the 5/8 duels, and you can even go into the centre duels, because, as I said, I love these Dragon centres, Sully and Bird up against Gagai and Best. Fantastic stuff. So there's a lot to like in this matchup. It's actually one of my most anticipated games of the round, despite the fact where these two teams fall on the ladder. I think what they're going to bring to this game is going to be really exciting. I'm really excited to see this matchup. But that one will conclude the preview podcast for this one. So once again, I will tell you guys to check out the Instagram. You know, I'm doing a lot more content on there. There's a lot more work to be done, but I'm trying to be consistent, and it's just a better way to engage with me and have a chat to me, guys. So do give me a follow. Do give me a DM over there at Chip and Chase Podcast on Instagram. But thank you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll see you guys next time.